What is a person worth? By that engineer. Chapter 7. Getting your point across.
Oh, great. It's little Miss can't handle a little teasing.
Lincoln hissed quietly. The emo cringed when he called her that.
I I didn't expect you to be at school of all places. I might be gone from home, but even I know I still have to go to school. And the better question is, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be curled up in a vent somewhere writing your stupid poems.
After hearing Lincoln's tirade last night, Lucy shouldn't be surprised by his harsh tone. Yet, it still stung her heart that the calm, caring, and compassionate brother she used to know had been replaced by someone who probably couldn't give a shit about what she thought.
The the library is also a nice place to write.
She stammered.
Sure it is.
Lincoln turned away from her, closing the internet browser and beginning to log off the computer. Lucy simply stood there, conflicted. Part of her was happy to find Lincoln looking in better shape than when he ran off than the previous night. She even noticed his hand was wrapped in medical bandages, yet she couldn't shake the ever-increasing amount of guilt that was welling up inside her. Usually, she's the superstitious one in the family and would know right off the bat whether or not her own brother was bad luck. Yet, like all 8-year-olds, Lucy was still gullible, and she fell into the same train of thought her family did. And Lynn herself proved to be an even bigger believer of luck than Lucy was. But the emo had to do something. While it was clear Lincoln had gotten help from an unknown source, everyone wished for his return. If Lucy could convince him to come back home, the family would try to work things out. Given the boy's attitude, this wouldn't be easy.
Lincoln, I know you're still upset about what we did, but please, we miss you and everyone in our family deeply regrets what we did to you. We spent hours searching all over town and came up short. Lori even asked her boyfriend where you were and he didn't say anything. No surprise there,
Lincoln thought. Lucy silently walked up to him.
It's likely too late to say it, but I'm sorry for not believing your truth about not having any sort of luck in using you. If anything, I really should have told some sense into Lynn about what luck really is.
The A-Savvy fan didn't say anything to her. Lucy looked at the floor in defeat before turning to leave.
Yeah, you should have,
He spoke, making the emo do an about face.
Lucy, you may say that you're sorry, but your apology falls short compared to what you all did to me. After I proved I wasn't bad luck, you guys apologized. But what did you make me do afterwards?
Lincoln's voice was laced with venom on that last sentence. Lucy didn't want to answer that, as both knew what happened. He wheeled the chair around to face her.
I'm pretty sure you remember that time I took the fall when you clogged the toilet with that stupid book of yours. I did it because I felt bad for you after everyone was mocking Princess Pony and didn't want you to suffer that embarrassment. It took 3 frickin' weeks for my supposed sisters to finally shut up about it. But at the time I always thought better me than you because that's what big brothers do for their little sisters.
Lucy averted her gaze because she couldn't afford to look at him. She didn't want to look at him. Everything he said made her feel even more like a jerk and a hypocrite. But Lincoln wanted to look at her dead in the eyes for what he was going to say next. He lightly grabbed the top of her head and tilted it up, giving a cold stare at her emerald green eyes through the locks of her dyed hair.
At this point, had I known that you'd kick me to the curb like the rest of my so-called family, I would have just let you admit the truth, and I might have even laughed at you as well. While it was nice you made that comic for me, it still doesn't make up for the fact I missed out on a good weekend for nothing!
He released the now trembling 8-year-old, who was on the verge of crying. Lincoln took out his phone and opened up the recent calls menu, showing it to his sister. Lucy let out a gasp as she stared at the number at the top of the list.
You didn't No, but I was very close. The only reason I didn't was because even if I'm so pissed at you all right now, I still don't want to see Mom and Dad go to jail for several years. But that doesn't mean I'm so willing to forgive any of you.
Lincoln put his phone away.
I'm not coming home, Lucy. At least not right now. You guys say you're sorry for what happened, but how can I trust you? You guys apologized for thinking I was bad luck and then made me wear a stupid suit for good luck. How am I supposed to take your word now?
Lucy blinked, letting a few tears roll down her cheeks. She opened her mouth to bring up a counter-argument, but then closed it.
My point exactly. As far as I'm concerned, your words mean nothing to me now. I thought I had some special connection with you, Lenny, Lana, and especially Luna. But after what happened over the last few weeks, you guys just proved you'll be like just the rest of my sisters. Guess I'm just some genetic defect in the gene pool, as Lisa would put it.
The emo shook her head.
Lincoln, what Lynn said was a lie. She didn't mean to. If she didn't mean to, she shouldn't have said it in the first place. And I'm not gonna forgive her for all the shit I've had to put up with her for years, especially with that head up her ass attitude.
Shh! Both heard a loud shh sound. Looking over, the kid saw the librarian giving them a scowl. In a hushed tone,
What I'm saying is, I can't trust any of you now. I can't trust anything you say because how am I supposed to know that you won't go back on your word the moment you get the chance?
Lincoln got up from the chair.
I'm not coming back home, Lucy. Not until you guys can prove to me not only that you regret everything that happened, but won't make the same mistakes again. I have a place to stay at, so don't bother looking for me. Pass it on to the others.
He walked to the door. The middle child stopped at the entrance to give his sister a harsh glare.
But if you guys try to drag me back to that house, I might reconsider that option about not getting the cops involved.
With that, the white-haired boy stepped out of the library, leaving an utterly shattered Lucy. She didn't even get the chance to tell him what Lynn was going through right now because of her actions. But Lincoln made his intentions clear. He wouldn't return to the Loud House until the family proved they would change their ways. Not only that, he had a massive bargaining chip to ensure that the boy would come back on his own accord. The goth lover was still shocked at Lincoln actually considering calling the police on them. Lucy couldn't imagine what would happen if the cops found out about any of this, but she knew the results wouldn't be pretty. Wiping away fresh tears and stifling a sob, the girl did the best she could to hide her emotions. She didn't want anyone else to see her in a state that would garner questions, but this task was difficult knowing that her brother effectively hated her and the rest of his family. The 8-year-old walked up to the door and poked her head out, hoping to catch another glimpse of Lincoln. Sadly, she did not. Hearing the bell ring, Lucy quickly made her way to the lunchroom. She needed to eat and get this message out to the rest of her family as soon as possible. Clyde walked around the playground looking for his best friend. Something about Lincoln just seemed off. The boy wasn't his usual cheery self, and on top of that, he didn't see him on the way to school. The nerdy child was glad to see him in class, but even then, Lincoln didn't talk much. Several sessions of therapy gave Clyde a good sense to know when someone was upset, even if it wasn't obvious. One thing that did stand out was the fact Lincoln wasn't wearing the squirrel suit. He was happy that it seemed Lincoln managed to talk his family out of their superstitions, but even then, wouldn't he be smiling? The chip-toothed boy did complain quite a lot about having to wear that thing. Clyde finally spotted his best friend sitting on one of the swings. If his depression wasn't clear earlier, it definitely was now. He wasn't alone either. To his right was Ronnie Ann, sitting on another swing. She seemed to have this shocked expression on her face.
You told her everything?
No, not all of it. Just enough so they wouldn't bother roaming the streets to look for me. She doesn't know I'm staying at your place. Hey guys, am I interrupting something?
Hey, Clyde.
They both said.
Okay, obviously I missed something.
Clyde said before taking the swing to Lincoln's left.
You don't know the half of it, buddy,
Lincoln stated. The next few minutes were spent with Lincoln explaining everything to Clyde, sparing him no details. He told him everything, up to the point of his encounter with Lucy. There was a bit of a pause before Lincoln told him whether he decided for police intervention, though. During the whole discussion, Clyde expressed several signs of fear, rage, disgust, and just general shock. By the time Lincoln was finished, the boy's mouth was stuck hanging open. He knew the Louds were chaotic, but he didn't expect to hear Lincoln tell him that they actually locked him out of the house and sold his stuff. Out of all the past annoyances the family did, ousting their own son/brother was likely the worst. It was at this point Clyde began to see why Lincoln tended to confide in him about the misdeeds of his folks. While Lincoln didn't mention the past faults his sisters put him through, the African American's heart was tearing up a bit just imagining it. He thought that, despite all the hectic shenanigans, the family loved each other. Now, though, they might as well be monsters. Even his sweet, sweet Laurie was one of them.
Close your mouth before I do it for you, McBride,
Ronaldo ordered. Clyde shook his head.
Sorry, but dude, that's heavy. I don't even know what to say about that. I know you said living in a large family is difficult, but geez, are you sure about your decision of not doing what you were about to do minutes ago? And why would you be afraid of telling us about it?
Lincoln gave a simple nod.
I was nervous about saying anything about me not calling the cops because I thought you might think I'm a coward and an idiot for not getting professional help.
In response, Ronaldo gave him a semi-hard slap on his cheek, shocking the two boys.
Don't ever think like that, Lamo. What you did was pretty ballsy on your part. You could've, would've, but you weighed your options carefully. Seeing how you could have torn your family apart, even if they would deserve it, means that you have a bigger heart than most would think.
That was one quality Ronaldo liked about Lincoln. Even if he was upset with someone, he still had some compassion for them. It was likely the reason why he gave her a chance. The African American nodded.
She's got a point there. I certainly wouldn't think less of you.
Lincoln rubbed his reddened cheek. Thanks, guys. I needed that. He gave a small smile. It turned back into a frown as he looked at his best friend. Now, Clyde, you promise not to tell anyone about this, right? The nerd nodded. And you promise not to think about calling the police yourself? Lincoln, I'm your best friend. There's no way I'd disrespect your decisions, especially when it revolves around your family. But I gotta know. Do you ever think you'll return home? In all honesty, Lincoln didn't know the answer to that one. On one hand, he wished he wouldn't need to see those he thought he loved him since the day he was born for an extended period of time. On the other, his heart still ached in sadness due to this and wanted to try to make it up with them. But, like he told Lucy, he already made his choice, and there was no going back on that. Like I said, there's no way I can trust any of them right now, and... The boy felt something light hit his head, making him pause. Looking at the ground, he saw it was an acorn. What the... Suddenly, a storm of said tree seeds pelted not only him, but his friends too.
Forgot your lunch, Larry!
A voice yelled out. By now, Lincoln wasn't surprised to hear a certain someone call him that name. Turning with an irritated look, the boy saw Chandler and a couple of his friends poking fun at him. Not a day went by without that kid picking on him just for the sake of being a nuisance. Chandler had been driving Lincoln up the wall all week due to being forced to wear the softball team's mascot by his family. And even if he didn't have it anymore, the redhead still picked on him about it.
You could use that tooth of yours to crack them open. Here's some extras, by the way.
One of the boys shouted before tossing another batch at them. The trio high-fived each other as if they had accomplished something big. Lincoln grit his teeth in anger. Little did those boys know, Lincoln wasn't much of a pacifist as of late. He still held on to his newfound rage like a sidearm, and he could unleash it at a moment's notice if someone tempted him enough. His knuckles turned white due to gripping the swing's chains harder. Lincoln was still pissed at Chandler after the boy used him to get free stuff at Gus's Gaming Grub, then having the nerve to not invite him to his party. Sadly, it took such an event for Lincoln to see how much of an asshole Chandler really was. Ronaldo noticed this and gently wrapped her hand around his, unintentionally making him glare at her.
Don't do it, Lincoln. He's not worth it.
She glared at Chandler. Lincoln held his irate look for a moment before giving a heavy sigh, dispelling his rage. As much as he'd like to pound that redhead into paste, it wouldn't be worth getting suspended over it. As if to enforce this, the bell rang, signaling the end of recess. The trio got up from the swing set and walked towards the entrance. As I was saying, can't trust any of them now, and I still have that option of actually calling the cops if they don't respect my wishes. The school day carried on like usual, with everyone waiting for that clock to strike 2 o'clock so they could stampede out of the building. But for one Loud, it was anything but. With her busted foot, Lynn Loud Jr. was constantly reminded of that grave mistake she made ever since her team lost that one game. The athlete could barely pay attention in class and had been called out for it numerous times, but she didn't care. The only thing on her mind was her still missing brother. Unlike Lucy, Lynn didn't know that Lincoln was actually in the school, but even if she somehow managed to catch a glimpse of him, what could she do? The jock was still hating herself for saying those awful and untrue words to him, and it was clear her nightmare still haunted her deeply. Throughout the day, her close friend Polly Payne and some of her softball teammates questioned as to why she almost looked like her 8-year-old sister, and each time, the 13-year-old just brushed them off. She just didn't have the will to speak. The only thing she ever said today, though, was her announcement to the coach that she was quitting the baseball team, and probably wouldn't play any sport for some time. The coach was rather surprised because he didn't think Lynn would be so upset about a small foot injury. But as the aspiring athlete put it, I just don't have the will to play anymore. Once the final bell rang, the school came alive as students piled out of the school like ants disturbed on their anthill, ready to take advantage of yet another weekend. Lynn slowly walked her way to the front of the school, a frown etched on her face. She was thankful to be alone because if someone asked her why she quit the team again, the jock was sure she'd smack them with one of her crutches. Pretty soon, the only thing she could hear in the hall was the sound of the crutch pads hitting the floor. But she wasn't completely alone. Lynn. Jumping 2 feet into the air, the surprised Loud landed on her butt. Looking up, she saw it was just her emo sister.
Dang it, Lucy. You should get a damn bell.
Sorry. The dark-haired girl helped her sister up. I have some urgent news, though. Do you know where the twins are? Probably outside. And what's so important? It's about Lincoln. Lynn's eyes grew to the size of dinner plates. Lincoln? She grabbed the emo by her shoulders and shook her vigorously. You saw him? Where is he? Is he okay? Lucy held her stoic expression, though her voice was bumpy. Yes, just stop shaking me. Once the jock stopped, Lucy readjusted her hair. I saw him in the library today when I was looking for a quiet place to write. He wasn't in the best of moods, but he's looking better. She walked towards the doors. Come on, our sisters and parents need to hear what I have to say. And to be honest, it's pretty dark. Aren't you the Duchess of Darkness? What I'm going to tell everyone is so dark it's well beyond my tastes. Lynn stared at her sister uneasily. What did Lincoln say to her that would put someone like Lucy on edge? She'd find out soon enough. The two of them found the twins, who were waiting impatiently for them. Lucy told the same thing, which led to more questions. The emo didn't say much and started to head home. The twins wanted to check around the school for any sign of Lincoln, but Lucy outright stated it's best not to try and find him, much to the dismay of her siblings. It bugged them to no end that the goth was withholding crucial information, but they were forced to be patient. On the way home, Lynn pulled out her phone and spread the word to the rest of the family. She instantly got bombarded with so many texts that she would make Lori proud, to the athlete's annoyance. Once the four got to the house, it wasn't long before the rest of the family began to pile in. Lenny shoved the door open roughly. You guys found Linky? Where'd you find him? Luna asked next. You guys literally better have good information, Lori stated. Is he doing okay? Luann asked. Pretty soon, the rest of the girls' questions became jumbled into an incoherent choir. As they continued with the questioning, Lynn noticed Vanzilla pulling into the driveway, which meant the parents were home by now. Furrowing her brows, Quiet! Thankfully, this got everyone to shut the hell up. Lucy knows everything about Lincoln right now, so she has the floor once Mom and Dad get in the house. So stop with the questions. Thanks, Lynn. Lynn Jr., are you certain you girls saw him? Lynn Sr. asked, as he, along with Rita and Lily, stepped in the house. I did. You should sit down for this, Lucy stated. Once the family was seated around the living room, the goth started. I found Lincoln in the library at school today. He looked better than he did when he left the house in a huff, and even one of his hands was bandaged. It's clear he got help from someone, but he wouldn't say who. Lincoln is still highly upset at us, to the point where he almost did the unthinkable. What did he do? Lana asked. He was very close to calling the police. The family let out a collective gasp. Another wave of guilt slammed into them as Lucy let them digest this information. It was an unspoken agreement that no one would dare ask the police for help looking for Lincoln due to the reasons Lola and Lisa brought up. But the fact the person they desperately sought almost put a warrant out on them not only made them fearful of their son/brother, but also for the fact that a good deal of them might see possible time behind bars. The older sisters were beginning to worry about spending time in juvie, or in Lori's case, be tried as an adult. The younger ones were worried about being sent into foster care, being separated from each other and given to different families. But this paled in comparison to what the parents were thinking. Out of everyone in the room, Rita and Lynn Sr. had the right to be the most worried. The thought of not seeing their beloved children for years and what may happen to them during that time frame shook them to their very cores. They also doubted the police would go easy on them if they told them the real reason their son was locked out, on top of the whole furniture issue. The two heard many stories about child abandonment on the news, and told themselves they'd never do such a thing to their own kids. Yet here they were, facing the prospect of potential jail time because they did the one thing they promised they wouldn't do. I'm too pretty to go to jail, Lenny cried. Guys, relax. I said he almost called the cops. He didn't because even though Lincoln doesn't like us right now, he still couldn't stand the fact of Mom and Dad going to prison for a couple years. This brought some relief to the family, but not much. He also said he can't trust any of us, and as such, he won't come home until we show him that he can learn to live with us again. He's found a place to stay, so he said not to come look for him. He also said if we try to force him to come back, he might call the police like he intended to do. The news was pretty grim. The situation was clear. Everyone had the metaphorical gun pointed to their heads now. Lincoln wanted to come home on his own accord, and nothing would change that. The family collectively drove him away due to their own ignorance, and now he was effectively holding the key that would either make them whole again or break them into tiny pieces. That all depended on what the Louds decided to do. Lori got up from her seat. "I'm heading up. I need to lie down for a bit," she stated solemnly before sauntering up the stairs. A few of the other sisters followed suit, leaving Lynn Jr., Lisa, Lola, and Luann. They were too shocked to say anything. However, Lisa did notice that Lincoln's school bag was missing. The parents had separated, needing their own space to think. Lynn Sr. walked outside, wondering where he went wrong as a father. Being the only other male in the house, he was supposed to be an inspiration for his son in the sea of females he lived with. But instead, he pushed him away like everyone else in the family. He could feel his own father looking down on him in disappointment right now. How could he call himself a parent after everything that happened? Hell, he even showed more care about the suit than his son's own well-being after being attacked by a large reptile. Banging his head against one of the supports on the porch, Lynn Sr. silently cried to himself. This didn't go unnoticed by their neighbor, Mr. Grouse. With Rita, she had a box of tissues on hand as she sobbed into herself. Not only was her baby boy angry with them, but now he just threatened to put his own mother behind bars. She wondered what her father would think of her right now. No doubt he'd be disappointed beyond belief because he didn't raise his daughter to abandon children. Rita began to question if she was even qualified to raise a boy. 1 male out of 10 females is a very rare occurrence. Maybe she got used to raising so many daughters that she tried raising Lincoln the same way, which would lead to problems later on. The matriarch just didn't know what to do with herself right now. She was stuck bringing up questions she didn't have answers to. And she just couldn't bear watching her family crumble apart, especially when she felt largely responsible. She needed help. Looking at the house phone, she stared at it for a moment, thinking of what to do. After some hesitation, she grabbed the device and dialed the number. "Sunset Canyon Retirement Home," a happy voice stated. "Yes. Is Albert Reed's available?" The happy tone then turned into an annoyed groan. Give me a sec." 10 seconds later, Rita heard the familiar voice of her dad. "Hello?" "Hey, Dad." "Hey, darling, how you been?" Albert asked in excitement. Instead, he heard sobbing on the line. "Sweetie, what's wrong?" "Dad, I messed up. I messed up big time." And that concludes the 7th chapter of What is a Person Worth? In the next chapter, we'll see how all the family is dealing with this. Until then, this is X-Ray 93, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.